And so the different political tendencies didn't upset anyone. You were willing to join in a popular front, a common front.
Yeah, yeah. It was a day of the United Front, and it was a day when I think we said, because we do not absorb each other's philosophies, but we are joined together on one purpose. These are things we're working on. We work to get people to vote. We worked with Adam Clayton Powell to desegregate 125th Street and to open up jobs. We worked with A. Philip Randolph, who would say that you had to learn how to be concerned about what working people. So that I think I learned a lot firsthand about labor relations and about social justice and economic opportunity from the activities we were doing. And that's why I've often said that by the time I was 25, I already had shaped my life's work. I knew where I wanted to go.
Now, we've been talking about the things you did in sort of an extracurricular activity. Was there anything you learned in school, in the classroom, that influenced your life?
Well, I always, I started out with entering the field of medicine, but when I was going to go to Barnard College, and I was rejected there on a quota after I had been accepted.
Yes, they told you they already had two.
Yeah, they had two Negro students, Belle Tobias and Vera Josephs, and so they said I could wait a year and come in when one of them graduated. So I went on to New York University. And so I shifted my interests, and I began to study more I took some work in religion, but also in the social sciences. And one of the things that was valuable to me was that I had assignments to work in communities that were, deprived. And when I say the Depression, I mean that was a time when no one had very much. And I had the opportunity to work in the Brownsville Community Center as a part of my schooling. And I think the other thing I would have to say is that it was in these groups that I belonged to, the United Christian Youth Movement, where we exposed ourselves. We're exposed to people like Harold Lasky and a number of them who had a social philosophy, who were, I guess you would call them in many respects, they were parts of social gospel. So that I was doing one kind of study in the daytime and another one on the weekend and evening in these small groups. Because we didn't just go and meet. We took time, we studied, we read, and even when Kenneth Clark wrote Youth in the Ghetto, some of us were part of his studies of what he was doing right there in the community.
Now, I get the picture that NYU is just ferment of political action of all kinds. Big arguments between Marxists, socialists,
yes,
Democrats, and so on. Is that a fair picture? Just
That's a fair
community
picture.
Just bubbling up with ideas and arguments.
And differences. And you had to learn to know what you stood for. You had to be able to stand up for it. And I found that many a time. And you had people who wanted you to, they were trying to indoctrinate. But I think it was good for me that I had a certain amount of grounding, but also that it wasn't just emotional that we were studying. We knew the difference between dialectic materialism and some other philosophies. And I mean, I just think it was a rich life, though we were poorer in dollars. I think it was rich in that experience. And I often say to young people today who ask me, well, how do we get included? And I say we have to do like Madam Walker did. She said she got started by giving herself a start. And I think you have to give yourself a start by seeing what's going on, what's happening to people. When we saw lynching, when we heard about that, when people like Thurgood Marshall and Walter White and Charles Houston would come into our little groups and tell us things that were happening. We got into action. Nobody had to tell us. That was enough.
You know, you're describing a world which I'm not sure could exist today.
No, it doesn't.
This combination of the place where you were, the depression around you, the ferment in Harlem, agitation against lynching and all these social ills, I don't believe that could occur today.
No, it's a totally different climate. And that's why I have, I find myself finding it hard not to appreciate fully the difference. I say all the time, I don't know what I would do if I were in today's society and 17. The only thing I believe I would do, because of the fact that from my childhood I had an interest in things that were growing about me. I had, as an 11-year-old, I helped to integrate my little community center, things, so that I always had a sense of driving to try to make things better. But I don't know, because I go through Harlem now, and I just say, well, this is a very different Harlem from what I grew up in. Harlem, when I grew up in, was poor but rich. There we had Duke Ellington, we had Cy Oliver, we had Lena Horne, we had all the things that were happening. And there was a way in which people felt the need of each other. And there was, I think, in today's society, it's much more individualistic. You know, young people want to know quickly, what am I going to get out of it? And somehow or other, the conditions under which we were living and our own searching for more meaning to our lives meant that for us it was a matter of saying, what can we do? How can we work together? We were more we-oriented than I see that we are today.